Hey guys, so I did Otzdarva's perkless and AFK experiment twice and documented the results. For those who are unfamiliar with this challenge, you basically play every killer once with no perks, no add-ons, and AFK for the first 30 seconds of each match. I codenamed these rounds the Otzdarva round and the True Talent round. You might be asking, why the hell did you do that? Well, basically just for comparison. It was absolutely not for any competitive reason. Let me explain. I live in Germany. That puts me right in between True Talent and Otzdarva. So first off, I know we're all playing on the same servers with the same player pool minus stream snipers. The second main reason is that Otz generally starts his streams in the evening, whereas True plays during the day. Now, for those who don't know, there's always been an unproven belief that in EU, daytime survivors play significantly better than evening survivors. And this isn't some conspiracy, it's been said for a long time, even before MMR.
I also noticed, this is a little bit of meta, that at a certain time in the day, I would be playing against survivors that on average played definitely worse than earlier in the day. There was a time where survivors that would bring really strong items, really strong perks, suddenly were outnumbered by the typical average red rank, very casual survivor. I took full advantage of that and played many of my games out of the 50 during this time frame, where survivors were much more easier to deal with.
So I wanted to do this challenge twice during 2 different times of the day and compare the results. Again, not for any competitive reason. I don't even know what time of day it was when Otz did the challenge himself. Let me start by explaining my personal rules. I did 13 killers per day, so each round took me 2 days to finish. I started with the evening round Thursday and Friday night between 7:30 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. I gave myself the weekend to chill out, then did the day round on Monday and Tuesday between 2 p.m. and 5:30 p.m. I never dodged a single lobby, no matter how obvious it was that I should have. I can say for a fact that definitely hurt my overall score, but I'm glad I did it because I feel it gave me a more balanced result. I also played like a savage. I took any and every opportunity to secure a 4K and unfortunately let more than one survivor bleed out on the floor just to do so. Lastly, I played right before grade reset, which gave me good data on how much time each survivor had played in the past month. Moving on to the statistics. I added a few additional things besides skills I felt were important to track. First, I did my best to assess the quality of every match from my own perspective and the survivor's perspective. I'll explain more on that later. I tracked how many individual hooks I got each round, how many gens were completed, and because I loathe the perk, I also counted how many dead hards we encountered. So on the night round, I finished with a kill ratio of 2.9, which is surprisingly good. That means I killed 77 out of the 104 survivors I played against. A total of 27 survivors escaped. For context, Otz had a 3.1 ratio, which means he killed 82 out of the 104 survivors. Now, it wouldn't be fair not to mention that he did that with surely more stream snipers, all in one sitting, and higher MMR with certain killers that I don't enjoy playing often. However, it is fair to say the results were similar. I only got 2 0Ks, both on Blood Lodge. That was with Doctor and sadly the Artist, a match where I literally played against the entity. Now on the day round, I finished with a kill ratio of 2.2. That means I killed 59 out of the 104 survivors, which is still okay, but it is worse. To be specific, it was an 18 kill difference. This time I got 3 0Ks, again with Doctor, then with Pig, and Oni. However, the Oni was 100% on me, and I'll explain more on that in a minute. True Talent, with no camping or tunneling, something I definitely did do, got a kill ratio of 1.2, which means he killed 32 out of 104 survivors. Again, he did that all in one sitting, just like Otzdarva, which can't be understated. That's a lot of hours. Okay, so let's compare, because there's way more than just statistics to unpack here. If you're not very interested in my miscellaneous stats, you can skip straight to the day versus night chapter. Let's start with overall match quality. Now, this is not scientific. I had to use my best judgment to gauge how much fun the survivors had every match based on things like interaction with the killer, did anyone DC or give up, how dirty I played, etc. Every match I rated separately for myself and the survivors on a 1 to 5 scale, 5 being the absolute best match and 1 being completely miserable. Using this scoring system, the night survivors had about a 2.2 out of 5 stars of enjoyment, and my funnest killer was 2.7 out of 5. Overall, that resulted in a below average quality level of 4 out of 10 for all the matches on the first round. Definitely a pretty low score and reflects poorly on the game. Using the same method for the day rounds, survivors had about a 2.5 out of 5, a little higher but nothing special. And as killer, I had about a 2.1 out of 5, ending with the result of a total 2 out of 10 match quality, which is just sad. During the night, survivors juiced 108 out of a possible 130 generators, and during the day, they got 116 out of 130, so only a small 8 generator difference. Hooks were a different story, however. During the night, I got 163 out of a possible 312 hooks. Now, when I say hooks, I mean individual hooks or cages. I'm not talking about any hook states. The day survivors got hooked 124 times, which is 39 less hooks than the night survivors. Out of the 104 survivors we played against during the night, 64 of them ran dead hard and 58 of them during the day. So a little over half on average. Now, it might seem a little surprising that the day survivors used dead hard less than the night, but there's a reason behind it. The day survivors were way more likely to use gen rushing perks or entire builds than the night survivors. In fact, I don't believe I encountered that a single time during the night round. There were also other considerable differences. Night survivors were way more altruistic than the day survivors. There were multiple teams that just left as soon as the last gen popped, costing me a lot of potential kills. There was a specific strategy I ran into multiple times that the day survivors were using as well, where the survivors would immediately split up onto 4 gens at the start of the match and shift W or play ultra safe to completely neuter my momentum until the gens were finished, basically finishing the game before it even started. The worst was with Oni, where they finished all 5 gens in 3 minutes and 24 seconds. That said, I had a guaranteed 1k and possibly more that I completely threw away from the mental fatigue of the match. And that goes to a larger point. Starting primarily at 4 PM each day, the survivor teams became insane. Their movement, synergy, and efficiency became so massively overwhelming, I started making a lot of mistakes. I felt like I had zero control, and it took a lot of mental energy just to stay focused. The juxtaposition of the night round was pretty extreme, to be honest. All of that said, I don't actually believe that the survivors that play in the late evening are just mysteriously worse than day survivors. My assumption is that during the evening, the player pool is just much larger, which results in the likelihood of you playing against teams with vulnerabilities considerably larger. You're going to see much more altruism, way more weaklings, great survivors throwing to save potato teammates, and even drunk survivors. The question I was asked the most during this entire challenge was, what's the point of this experiment? So at its core, it was to prove that DBD isn't heavily survivor-sided, and to be fair, both rounds prove that in a kill-based MMR system. Cheap strategies are far superior to skillful ones for both sides. So what we're left with is essentially a game comparable to Mario Party that is being optimized in the sweatiest way imaginable to suck all of the charm, horror, and fun out of it. Also, I believe the time of day you play is going to have an impact on your opinion of how severe the problem is, whether you're aware of it or not, at least in EU. I'd be really curious to see US players try this as well, as I've often heard the opposite is true there. I also think these matches would have turned out pretty similar even if I was running normal builds. The caliber of survivor seemed to jump from potato to god tier. Sadly, this experiment resembles what a lot of matches in DBD look like right now, and I'm glad I tracked the quality of them because they were really unfun for both sides, win or lose. This challenge undisputedly proves, at least to me, that if DBD wants to soften the blow of its upcoming onslaught of competition, behavior needs to seriously put their ear to the ground, listen to the community, and start balancing this game for fun, pace-oriented matches. To close out the video, I highly recommend to anyone who has finished the challenge already to consider doing it again at a different time if they possibly can. And I'll leave you with a few tweets from Otz summarizing his opinion on the experiment. I'll also link his original video along with True's video and my full streams in the description below. Let me know if you guys are interested in an edited video with all of my time-stamped matches from both rounds. Thanks for watching and have a good one. Lots of streamers have attempted the perkless plus 30-second AFK killer challenge lately with some really impressive results, so I figured I'd make a thread explaining what this experiment shows. This experiment shows that survivors can have a huge objective advantage and still lose if they make a big enough mistake at almost any point of the match, especially without several second chance type perks. Sometimes a single weak survivor can get the rest killed. Very true. Killers are massively rewarded for playing scummy. You can often shortcut a win by tunneling someone out very early or even try to slug all remaining survivors, if their perks and playstyles allow it. The MMR system only cares about kill count, not how you got them. Yes, it's a very bad system. Even with a massive handicap, killers can almost always secure one kill by hooking far away from the hooks, handling hook trades well, or using some killer powers like Bubba. You can make it nearly impossible for survivors to realistically get 4 people out as long as you catch one. This means that survivors messing up equals 4 kills, unless killer doesn't slug for the 4k plus hatch RNG. But killers doing really bad equals 1 kill, unless you really mess up. In the experiment, very few 0ks happened, and most of them were a big mistake or ambitious play that backfired, i.e. my Oni match. Survivors who fail and get 1 escape get no positive MMR, hatch doesn't count. But killers who fail and get 1 kill could still potentially gain MMR or stay about even. This makes it more likely for many killer players to be stuck in the MMR hell where all matches feel sweaty. All streamers who have attempted this challenge so far range from 5,000 to 9,000 plus hours in DBD, and they are all very solid players. So how are they not losing if they're MMR? I guess I'm the exception here. I only have 70 days played, which seems like a lot of time, 70 days, but in comparison to some of these hours that these guys have, it's really not that much. So how are they not losing if their MMR is supposedly super high and they should be playing against equally strong opponents? Very simple, because the MMR never resets and it pairs you with wildly inconsistent groups of survivors. At this point, you can face competitive tournament teams one match and almost complete beginners the next. As far as I can tell, this is exactly the same for everyone, yes. For a good comparison, you could literally check out both of my Huntress games from the day and the night and see the insane difference between the skill level of the survivors. And now let's talk about all the ways you can make these results even better for you as a killer. Don't wait 30 seconds, obviously. Only play strongest top tier killers. Use a full meta build with the rest of the perks and add-ons. Use offerings for maps, hatches, mories, etc. Check the profiles of every survivor in the lobby to potentially identify the strongest players and weak links. Do the challenge off stream to focus better and avoid stream snipers, which happen to some. Survivor crashes and it's now an early 3v1. Be ruthless and enjoy your easy win. If you try all of that, as unfun as it might be, exactly, can you honestly still believe that this game is heavily survivor-sided? In my opinion, no. Survivors also have tons of easy shortcuts to win more often, and most of the time the victory goes to the sweatier side. DBD is sided to whatever side decides to be the nastiest. Huge flaw in design. And that's why a killer can get a 2k average with a huge handicap if they're willing to play as dirty as you can. Meta is stale for both sides. Insanely true, and the devs are not helping with that. no real incentive to play nice or spice things up. In fact, I would say that there's an incentive to actually keep things as stale as possible because you're kind of punished for attempting to do anything differently. Huge gap between low and S tier killers. Very true, and they're still nerfing low tier killers. So what are they doing? I don't get it. Subtle or not, cheaters everywhere, and I will appreciate any time anyone mentions that.